Welcome to today's episode where we dive into conflict resolution with Dr. Gozde Yucel, the powerhouse behind Kismet Consulting. Dr. Yucel, with a PhD from NYU University and professional works from Stanford, combines academic brilliance with hand-up expertise in meditation and conflict management. How you doing today, ma'am?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Perfect, perfect. I would just want to introduce, if you can tell me more about, your what you do, what Kismet Consulting does, and give me more information about, your visions and goals. That would be awesome.
Yes, yes. So Kismet Consulting is actually came out of my own experience at the corporate America. I mean, starting with
Okay.
academia first, becoming a scientist at NYU and Stanford, and then entering into workforce at the industry and realizing all the dysfunctions that's been happening. And because I come from the same background, I knew exactly why people do what they do. So I kind of realized, oh, this is something that I want to get into. I was very passionate about. So I kind of got certifications about mediation and conflict coaching. And while I was working as a scientist, I was actually a mediator for the company that I was working at for about 4 years. And I really enjoyed doing that work. So when I left the company, I wanted to have my own business. So that's why Kismet Consulting has started. And my passion and goal is to help companies, biotech companies, tech companies, any kind of companies, to help with their conflict, to help with their communication styles, and so on. So that's why I've started this company.
Perfect. Just for my users, for my listeners, Dr. Yucel helps businesses and leaders across US
Right.
creating harmony, navigate through tough conversation, build strong connections, and connect to the team. Right.
Right.
So we'll get deeper into know more about how she helps. She's been doing it from last 4 years, right? This will be amazing conversation, right? Where my users, my business owner friends will know more about,
Yes, that would be great.
your help, how you can help them.
Yes.
Okay, that's so awesome. So what's the biggest reason companies struggling with conflict today, and how does Kismet Consulting help solving those?
Well, so I have to look at it from the US point of view. I'm Turkish, by the way. I'm originally from Turkey, but I came to this country about 22 years ago. So the cultural difference is definitely there in that sense. In the US, at least, people are scared of conflict. They avoid it. But I come from a culture where in Turkey it's like we're open to it. That's part of life, and I think that kind of view helped me really understand why US the way it is,
US.
right? So the way that they avoid conflict, but then how it blows up, right? In the end, because you can't avoid it. It's part of life. When I say conflict, people just get like all like flustered and they were like, oh my God, like we don't have conflicts or we avoid it. And I'm like, there's no way that you can avoid conflict if you're a human being, right? So if you want to call it disagreements or miscommunication, just to be less scared of it, great. But it's conflict in the end. Maybe it's not that aggressive or whatever. Like it can be different kind of conflicts. So once you accept that there is conflict and you want to do something about resolving it, I think that's the first step to really going into this. And I think that's really important. Like,
And I think that
accept.
everybody should start, taking the first step,
Right,
They,
right,
they need a proper person who can guide them, help them, to show the right path. That is very much important. In these days, getting a mentor is very much, important from a business point of view.
right,
As a CEO, right, I totally understand. If I have someone who can help me or can guide me, okay, nothing like it. I'll be always happy, always
right,
blessed.
right.
Perfect. So let me tell you, tell me something about your like educational background. How did your journey from NYU to Stanford influence the unique approach you bring in United States clients?
Right. So I first came to NYU for my doctoral studies for PhD, and I have to say I'm lucky that I came to NYU first because it was a very good place to get mentorship, like amazing place to become a scientist. I had this like
Best in
six,
the business. They're best in the business for
yes,
sure.
and it's in New York City. I love big cities. I came, like I wanted to be in a big city. So it was an amazing experience and I learned a lot. I really, trained well and so on. So, and then when I moved to Stanford for my postdoctoral studies, it was a big culture shock. Same country, same, like you would think that it would be around the same kind of similar experience, but it wasn't. It actually was very cutthroat, sink or swim type of thing, and I just struggled so much. I mean, I'm glad I had the background from NYU, so I knew what I was doing, but I just didn't understand the culture. I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is, how does this work? I don't think this, you could do science like this. So
So much
I
it
just,
changes.
I couldn't do it. So, and then that kind of led me to think, this could be done differently, right? So then when I went to industry in a company, I realized that, so I thought, okay, people are like, oh, they come to from academic to industry. There is HR, human relations. So it shouldn't be that bad. But what
True.
happens is people from academia bring their culture with them, right? So we can't just like change ourselves. So if you come from an environment like Stanford, you're going to bring that culture into the company
Correct.
versus NYU. And then there's a big clash, right? So people who do science this way versus this way. And then there's this whole thing about, so that unique experience in that sense. So I've seen both. I know how to do it
That
well.
got you a boost as well. That got you a proper boost as well, right? To come into
Right,
this industry.
right, right.
Perfect.
I know how it could be done well, and I know how it couldn't be done well. So I just, so I kind of had both of those experiences that really helped me shape how I want to do my practice in that sense, because I had the experience of both.
Perfect. So you work often, involved with sensitive issues, right? How do
Right.
you help your clients handling the tough situation, without, causing them more frictions? How do you support them?
So I should mention that, so there are two ways to do this. So there's mediation, which is if there are two parties that are in a conflict, I would be the neutral party sitting with them and help them navigate their conflict. Or if they don't want to face each other just yet, I could do conflict coaching to each person and help them empower themselves and communicate better so that they could talk to each other, right? So conflict coaching is a little bit easier because it's 101, right? But mediation, yeah, things come up, right? Sometimes people just walk out. These
Right.
things happen, right? And
Right.
that what happens is like you have to be okay with things getting worse before they get better. So as long as you're okay that you accept, you give them space to have this kind of conversation or be upset, or there are certain rules, like you can't be swearing each other, you can't be calling out each other names and things like that, so that we have some rules that they have to follow. But other than that, they have to talk about how they feel, because otherwise it's not going to come out. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. So if you're okay with that, it's going to be okay in the end. I've been in mediation sessions and I came into it and thinking, oh my God, how is this going to be resolved? And like magically at some point they just like start talking to each other, and then boom, like everything is so much better.
Right. Once you start communication, things
Right,
work out properly.
right,
So, ma'am, how to get hold of you if my audience, my listeners, want to get in touch with you? How can, how would they get in touch with you? Your email, your phone number, I'll put it in the description, but still,
Right.
you can tell them.
I have a website, www.kismetconsulting.us. I have all the information there. They can find me there. We can just have a one session to discuss about your issues. The thing is though, what I like about what I do is I don't want to just come in when you have a conflict. I'm happy to do that. But I think the communication is the big key here. So if you want to have a proactive approach where you want to, start early, getting the communication better with all your team members, we can have some work, shops, or we can have some classes. We can have team work, somehow like getting everybody to work well with each other. Then that's a proactive approach we can do before anything happens. But I'm happy to also help after something happens as well.
Perfect. So, what simple, actionable tips for our listeners, who wants to improve their, conflict resolution skills right now? So, how do you
One
assist them?
thing I always say, be be okay to apologize. Apologizing goes a long way. Even if you think that it's not your mistake, right? You don't know how you did what you did made the other person feel. If you apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry if I caused you to feel this way, I didn't mean it, I think it just melts down all the bad feelings, and that really is important. But it's hard for people to apologize, but I think it's really important, really important.
Very much important,
Yeah.
Life would be so easy.
Right. Right.
In your experience, how does better conflict management impact a company's bottom line?
As I mentioned, I think that I was actually trying to target companies that are just starting out, like 2-3 people startups and stuff like that, because I think it's very important to set up how the communication is going to go and hire accordingly. So this is how we do it. This is our culture. This is how we communicate. This is things like that. So if you get ahead of it and set this up beforehand, and then it's easier to hire as well, because you'll have certain questions. I've been part of hiring as well in my older company, where I had certain questions that I asked, like about conflict, how they deal with conflict, and it makes such a big deal, like what they answer in the end, because then that person comes into the company at least knowing what kind of culture you have, what kind of communication style you have. At least that this person can adapt to your culture, So it's really important. It's like we spend 85% of our time at work. Like if you're in a conflict with someone, you're not happy, how is that going to affect your life? So
That will
important.
hamper everything. That will
Yeah.
hamper life, hamper operation, or hamper the business, hamper everything. True.
Right. Exactly. That's why it's very important. I think that is one of the most important things that companies should take into consideration.
So, how was you influence working with US companies?
Sorry, say that again.
How was your how you feeling working and helping US companies?
It's been good. People are, it's just one of those things that like people are like, oh, what is this? We don't know. But if someone knows me through my old company, then they hire me. So it's like word of mouth works better in that sense to get a business. But yeah, I think that it's really helpful for companies, and I think this should be part of HR, but it isn't. Normally, HR does very like filing or benefits and things like that. They actually avoid conflict, which is silly to me because, that's part of the human relations, right?
Right.
So I think this should be part of HR, but it isn't. So if it is not, I'm happy to help. And I think people like me can help, in the short term, go in, help them 1 to 3 months and then get out. So at least you're not part of that company. you don't have stake in it, and it's easier for you as a stranger to come and help them versus you've been working in the company.
Right, right. So for business that might hesitate to bring conflict consulting, what's one thing you would like to say, and what's your value about it?
I would say that fear or avoiding something is worse, because once things are bottled up, it's gonna explode, and when there's an explosion, it's harder to deal with. So I would say avoid that, not the conflict.
Right. And not the least, right? What are the other services, if a business or companies are looking for? What are the other services you help them with?
I mean, as I said, I do conflict mediation, but also, like at the beginning, if you wanna, as a communication, I could be working as a communication coach. I could help them with their learning and development, how to set the culture up, and things like that. Also, I would be able to help with hiring, or at least train someone how to hire people according to their culture, according to their communication styles.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today. If my audience wants to get in touch with you, is it possible they can book a one-on-one session with you?
Yes, yes. And the first session is always free. So,
Okay, awesome, perfect. Okay, so this is a win-win for all my listeners. Please get hold of the doc. She's always there to make sure that we stay in a happy place, not only at home, also at office. So that a peace of mind is always there working. When team members are motivated, business automatically goes up. No doubt about it.
exactly,
Hope
exactly.
you find Dr. Versal's insight as valuable and inspiring as we did. If you enjoyed this episode, I want you to hear more about the conversation with the leaders making a difference in this world. Please like, share, and follow our podcast. Thank you so much, for listening to us, tuning to us. Thank you, Doctor, for giving me a precious time. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you
Stay
for
tuned
having
for
me.
more episode, and for unlike next time, keep it moving, keep it real. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.